Prior to Austin coming to live at the rabies site here with Autism Together, he spent 26 months in hospital. He was detained for that whole time under the Mental Health Act. Austin was first sectioned. He just literally turned 17, so he was still a child, and was admitted to a CAMS unit for 6 months. And then at the age of 17 and a half, he then was transferred to an assessment and treatment unit. He spent the first 6 months in segregation because under the Mental Health Act, as a child, you have to be segregated on an adult ward. After Austin had been in hospital for probably a year, that's when the sort of planning for his future and his future care started. And we started looking at what sort of care he might need, and it was suggested by his consultant that Austin had quite complex needs and we were looking for a residential placement. At this point there were very few care providers that were willing to even come in and assess Austin. There actually weren't that many care providers out there, and I think at one point we had a meeting and we discussed the fact that we might have to open up looking for a placement for Austin, in the whole of England. It was, there were so few providers that were willing to, sort of come in and meet and, think about offering Austin a placement. And then I remember there was one day a member of staff was doing a bank shift. He was training to be a mental health nurse, and he'd previously worked for Autism Together, I think for about 5 years, and had been a deputy manager, I think in one of the supported living properties. And he took me to one side and he said, "Have you heard of a charity called Autism Together?" And myself not being from the Wirral, I'd not heard of them. So he told me a lot about what Autism Together do, and it was then that I decided to speak to Austin's social worker and ask for a referral to be put through to Autism Together. I remember we had a meeting in the hospital and we were discussing the sort of care that Austin would need, and that it would have to be residential need, and it was felt that he had very complex needs. And I remember saying in the meeting I had quite clear ideas of what I wanted for Austin. I wanted him to be in a sort of purpose-built autism specific building, where there were lots of grounds, where environmentally it would meet his sensory needs. And then when Autism Together got in touch and did their assessment, and they offered Austin a placement that they created for him, and it was here on the rabies site. And when I came to the rabies site, it was almost like that was exactly what I described to professionals in the hospital that Austin needed. And that was quite an emotional moment, really. It was quite a tearful moment coming and seeing. Oh God, I thought I was going to cry then.
It's okay.
Noticed really huge positive changes for Austin now that he's living on the rabies site. I feel like he's got that chance at life now. He's accessing the community. He can come and visit me at home. I can take him out everywhere. I take him on the train to Liverpool. We can go out and have meals together. We go on long walks. And I think it's just having that freedom that you don't get when you're in a hospital. And he has a routine and consistency, and that's so important for someone like Austin. I think he knows where he is now. He's a lot happier, he's smiling, and he said something to me, I think it was last year, which I thought was really interesting, and he said that he was glad he wasn't in hospital anymore, and that he was happy to live here because myself and his staff take him out everywhere. And he said, "You're all showing me the world now." And I think if that doesn't sum up how amazing it is for Austin here, I don't know what really does.